Everybody in the whole wide world really just needs to chill.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue into another thing that you're doing right now, which is the House of Strombo, which is, first of all, super radical. Check it out if you haven't seen it. That's on YouTube, too.
It is on YouTube, that's right.
So that's where you have bands come and play in your living room.
Yeah.
So what's that been like? I mean, I feel like that question kind of is right
crazy.
there.
It's crazy. It's I'll get up in the morning, I'll go downstairs, and I'll sweep the walkway to my house, like, you know, your path from your front door, and then Scott Weiland was standing there. He was like, "Hey man, can I use your bathroom?" I'm like, "Yeah, totally." And I just let him in.
Depends
and
what
it's
he's doing in there,
super
I guess.
weird, right? I'm like, "Oh, this is weird for me." Or, you know, I was there one day, and then an Uber pulls up, and out comes James Hetfield from Metallica. Or John Prine comes and plays a concert in my living room, and Gordon Lightfoot comes over to watch. Gordon Lightfoot, you know, we just went through the passing of a really great person in Neil Peart, and
oh yeah,
you know, Neil.
Rest in peace. Yeah,
absolutely.
Amazing lyricist too.
Amazing. Neil was in the house. Rush were in the house. The Cult were in the house. The Kills were in the house. Grandmaster Flash, Lee Scratch Perry, Paul Oakenfold in the house. Like,
doesn't even sound real.
It doesn't even sound real.
Good Lord.
Tool, Maynard was in the house.
It's like a jam session in heaven or something.
It's nuts, man. And I'm very grateful for it. I really am grateful for it.
Man, I got to stop by your house sometime.
It's pretty fun. We have 4 in the works for the next 3 months, I think, are going to happen.
Nice.
All punk-based for the most part.
And you're in Toronto, right?
I will be for this, yeah. I will be for this. And it's...
Oh, because I'll come out, man.
Come whenever you want, yeah, for sure. It's fun. I was walking down the street. I used to work at this radio station in Toronto called The Edge, and we used to have a storefront studio at 204 Yonge Street, and then 228. I only know that because we kept saying live from 228 Yonge.
It's burnt in there, yeah.
Totally. So we did the show from there, but we had open doors, so people would come in, bands would come in, and kids would come in and hang out with us, especially ones who didn't want to go home after school, people who were interested in the arts, and they would just come hang around the DJs. And we would do interviews, and we'd have our show. We watched people grow up. We watched, you know, people would come in when they were teenagers and watch them grow up and have kids of their own and come and hang out.
Awesome.
It was really lovely, really lovely. It was community, right? And then I went to MuchMusic, and MuchMusic a bit bigger and a little bit more national, but still community. You know, we'd do a show with U2, and we'd shut down the street, and people would go, "Wow, Smashing Pumpkins, Foo Fighters, Lauryn Hill would play on the street." I remember the day,
so awesome.
dude. I remember the day I was standing there. Darby Wheeler and I, who I worked with for many years, he went on to make Hip Hop Evolution, that Netflix series.
I'm watching that right now, and that's hosted by Shad, right?
Yeah, Shad. So the producers, that Darby and Rodrigo, both worked on my talk show, and I met Rodrigo when I interviewed him for my TV show when I was on MuchMusic.
Crazy.
So yeah, it's a small little gang. But I remember Darby and I were standing there, and we had the side stage on the Saturday, not even the big stage. The side stage, this relatively new artist was going to rehearse a song, and I don't know, like 10, 15 people got up in their street clothes, and they looked like they were in a choir, but they weren't dressed. And it looked like the choir in the formation they took, right? And then this artist stands up, and all of a sudden, and this is like Saturday afternoon, you know, before the MuchMusic VJs, MuchMusic Video Awards, and all we hear is this boom, boom, Jesus Walks. And it was the first time any of us heard Jesus Walks from Kanye. And Kanye's sound checking it up there. And we were just stunned by this the quality of this song. But I remember people walking down the street and stopping. Well, what is this? One year, it was an afternoon, same thing, Saturday afternoon. Lenny Kravitz is playing American Woman on stage. He's rehearsing, just sound checking. Up walks the Guess Who, plugging their guitars, boom, bass, boom, boom, and they start figuring it out. And so Lenny and the Guess Who together are working out American Woman, and people walking down Queen Street in Toronto, stopping and looking. That community thing is a big part of.
Is there a video of that? Because that'd be amazing.
I'm sure there is.
Jesus.
Yeah, there must be. Yeah, there must be. It was just sound check. But I remember just standing there in the parking lot. There was only a couple of us looking at this, thinking, "Well, this is amazing."
Yeah, we're seeing something
this
here.
This is crazy. Damn. So I was in LA, and somebody walked up to me on the street, just a random person, and said, "I just watched your interview that I did with Stone Temple Pilots in a parking lot 15 years ago." And I was like, "Oh my God, I forgot about that concert." But audience was on the street watching. And so community has always been the most important thing to me in this game. Sharing music, but it only matters if someone else gets to hear it, right? So I was walking down Yonge Street a few years ago, past where the Edge used to be. It's boarded up. It doesn't exist as a station. A station exists, but they moved it, so it's not that anymore.
It's not there, yeah.
And I make a right-hand turn onto Queen Street. And it's the same neighborhood I've been walking in most of my life. I've been living in the same spot for decades. I live in a house now which is about 100 yards from places I used to get into fistfights in when I was 14, going to all ages clubs. Like,
it's so rad.
Yeah, it's wow. So it's like, it's my hood, right? And I'm walking down this. Well, it's not my hood. It is a hood that I'm grateful to be a part of. And I'm walking down the street. So I passed the edge and it's closed. And I passed by MuchMusic, and they had boarded up the windows as well because they have a new show in there, which I think is called The Social. And I'm not mad. It's not even about that show. I'm not mad at that show because the game has changed.
That's on City TV, I think, or something. Right?
Is it? Yeah, I'm not even
I
sure.
don't know.
Yeah, but it's an important show. It's an important conversation show. But they do it in the place where the MuchMusic environment used to be. And I just thought, man, this was such an important place. Kids would come from all over the country to stand at that corner at Queen and John.
Or right up against the glass
Right
with
up
their
against the
posters
glass.
and
I
shit.
remember how many times I'd be walking. I'd ride my motorcycle down Queen Street, stop. I'd see some kids, they'd freak out and go, "Oh my God, do you know Rick Campanelli?" I'd go in and I'd say, "Yo, Rick, we used to call him Champ. Yo, Champ, there's a couple kids outside who'd love to meet you."
Some fanboys.
Every time Rick was like, "Absolutely."
He seems like a really nice guy.
Rick is a god. I believe that the greatest person, the hardest job in the most impressive job in Canadian television ever was Master T. Hosting the hip hop shows in MuchMusic was a very challenging job because the hip hop community was growing in Toronto. It's like punk. Like punk and hip hop are very similar in this respect. It's a lot of fans. If it doesn't break through, they question you. They question your motives. It's an important job. I think Master T is the greatest that ever been on MuchMusic. Master T.
He was awesome, yeah.
Awesome.
What, just for helping find like underground artists and giving
But
them
just
a spotlight?
owning that space. If you think about it, right, there were not a lot of black men on television.
No, not in a big way.
No, and certainly not in. I mean, you would see ex-athletes in sports, but to City TV and Moses Neimer respected our ethnicities, respected our nationalities, and Master T was incredible. So he had the gig, and
Back to Rick, yeah.
Rick is the true Canadian Idol. It is hard to put into words how people felt about Rick when they saw him on the street. People would lose their fucking minds. Girls would lose their minds. The young guys would lose their minds. And he never disappointed. Rick was a leader of leaders. And Ed the Sock and I, and we both had, we were very lucky that we had a lot of people who liked what we were doing as well. Ed and I both knew, on a human level, because we love Rick, but also on a business level, Rick's the franchise. And Master T is the one who named Rick the franchise. So we did everything we could to big up Rick all the time because I think Rick's the greatest, to be honest with you. I think that we've never had anybody like him on television. We'll never have anybody like him on television again. The whole Rick the Temp moniker was hilarious because he had been there for so long.
Yeah, it was a decade or something.
Yeah,
right?
And my last day on MuchMusic was Rick's last day.
Oh.
And I had such a respect and still do for Rick Campanelli that when I finished my last hit on Much News, all I was thinking about was that it was Rick's last day.
Wow.
Because Rick is the greatest. Bob and I wrote a scripted series that we want Rick to be in because I honestly think that people don't realize when we I get it, Ron and Don. I get a lot of accolades that I'm grateful for, but thankful. But honestly, lots of Kevin Newman, amazing. Peter Mansbridge, the king for sure. We have so many great hosts in this country. Sukyin Lee. Well, she's actually she's like
Sukyun's awesome too.
Top drawer. Sukyin is so good too. But I'm just talking about like the matinee idol thing. Rick, there will never be anybody like the franchise.
Well, and he was Canada's Entertainment Tonight guy too, right?
After MuchMusic, yeah.
Yeah.
I tried to get Rick. I've never told the story yet.
It's an exclusive, Just Chill exclusive.
I got offered a job at a show once, a big show.
Okay.
And I remember looking at the producers saying, "I'm not the guy for the show." And they said, "You're the guy for the show. It's going to pay me a lot of money. It's going to be a good show. It's going to be a big show." And I love the producers. But I remember saying, "I could do this, but you should give this to Rick."
Wow.
And the guy said to me in the negotiation, "I have never offered a job to somebody who tried to get somebody else the job."
Literally throwing yourself under the bus.
Because I said, Rick, I wanted Rick to succeed on every level.
You loved him. You guys were friends.
We're friends. Yeah, I loved him. Rick doesn't even know I did this. And I was just like, Rick's the guy. They went to Rick and Much fucked him over.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But Rick, I really wish Rick would have had that job. And then he ended up going to Entertainment Tonight, had a great career there. But there's never been anybody like Rick Campanelli. The franchise, Ricky Youngcat, the champ. We had so many names for him. And he was also like super dark and super edgy. There was a part of him that people never got to see.
He always seemed very clean cut.
Yeah, well, Rick and I in Vegas was a nightmare. Like we were in trouble. We had troubles for sure. But yeah, Rick to me is the greatest, and he still looks the same. I've put
Yeah, he doesn't age. This guy
doesn't age. No, I've had my Instagram since when Instagram started. I've had a very lovely response from people, and I put pictures up of lots of celebrities that I've worked with or whatever, and get lots of likes. The number one photo is Rick and I.
Still.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Rick's the god.
Yeah, because you have pictures with like Jamie Foxx and all these like huge Hollywood icons.
People love that stuff, but
There
you
you
know,
go.
people love Rick. And whenever Rick and I go on together, we've done occasional live streaming little things, people freak out. And it's because Rick is a god, man. And I honestly, I sometimes I get emotional thinking about how amazing he is.
That's amazing,
and how
dude.
nice he was to everybody, and how nice and giving he was to every fan. Like, people should be like Rick. Be like Rick, because Rick Campanelli is
human.
Yeah, he's a superhuman.
And you guys are still chill fairly often?
Yeah,
or?
He's got a family, and so
He's Toronto, or?
Yeah, yes, Toronto. Yeah, I think he might have suburbs, but we text each other occasionally. I'm just a huge fan of Rick as a person, and I would go out of my way every time we go. Rick's the guy. Rick's the guy.